Hey, everyone out there. Welcome to the show. I know you're probably expecting to see Ed here. Well, I've hijacked the airwaves because I have a very interesting guest that needs to come on the air. So, without further ado, welcome Stephen, the teacher. How are you?
Hello, good day. Thank you, Rob, for having me. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can share some good stories together today.
Oh, I have no doubt. I know Kenny got a hold of me about this one, and it's like I haven't heard the name, but I started researching, and there are so many cool little stories about Stephen the teacher.
Yeah, I was never a big name. I'm not going to mislead anybody. And while I'm on that note, I was never the best in ring worker, but I did know how to promote myself, how to sell myself, how to engage the fans. I always said that when it came to work rate, I was a C minus, but when it came to the microphone, I was an A plus.
And sometimes that's all it takes.
Oh
You've
yeah.
seen careers destroyed for just the opposite. Amazing in ring and no ring or no mic talent.
Oh sure, definitely, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the name. How did the name start?
Uh, Basically, I backed into the name. It was never planned. I was training at CZW, which was run by John Zandig, um, and he couldn't remember my name, so he just kept calling me Teach. I made many character pitches to him, but he didn't like any of them, and I couldn't come up with anything better. So Steve the Teacher.
That is awesome. Now, I also noticed that you have gone overseas. How long were you based in the US?
Let's see. My first match was when I was 34 years old. Ironically, just down the block from the school I had taught at for 9 years, there was like a 5 or 6 year gap in between when I left and performing there. But it was a good place to introduce the character. I came on as a face, and I just taught down the road. I was there for 9 years, and then I hated every minute of it, and I just turned it right into the classic heel. So I did that until I was in my mid 40s, and I had a couple of injuries at a show. I gave myself a concussion doing a senton off the top rope. My opponent rolled the wrong way, and I adjusted midair and landed flat on my head. And then he put me in a figure four and tore my meniscus. So I had a concussion and a torn meniscus. Had to drive home by myself, um, 3 hours for $20. And
Oh, dang.
I said, you know what, I just can't do this. So I arranged a local show. Well, I didn't arrange it. I got booked on it. And I just did a retirement match. Who did I wrestle? Oh, somebody awesome. I don't not Mike Awesome, obviously. But nobody knew that I was going to announce it. It was in the first part of the show. I went into the locker room and I thanked everyone. And Blue Meanie did one of those dramatic. If you
Nice.
ever saw Not Another Teen Movie, that's one of my favorite parts in there.
That is
So
awesome.
I basically retired about 6 years. An old friend of mine who I'd lost contact with, we got in touch, and he gave me one more match. And I had put on at least 70 pounds by that point. I was way out of shape. Only had like 2 ring sessions at his house in the Pocono Mountains. And he couldn't find an opponent. So eventually he got someone. Actually, he's pretty big now in the Northeast area. Ty Awesome. No, wow, I just made that connection. I retired against an Awesome and came back against an Awesome. That just hit me right now. He's done some dark matches. He's been on the ECWA, whatever their tournament is, the best 8 or top 8.
Okay.
Uh, but I was really out of shape then, and I was blown up within the first spot. And one of the fans yelled, "Somebody get him some Geritol."
Of
But I
course.
finished it. It took me 4 matches to recover my breath afterwards. And then I moved to China. Uh, Teaching in America was not what it used to be, especially in the state of New Jersey. They
Mhm.
were changing the evaluation system, basically to run older people like me out of the system because we were getting paid 4 times the amount of money as new teachers.
Yep.
So I went to China to teach. I was there for about a year before an old acquaintance, also from New Jersey, told me about Middle Kingdom Wrestling. And I sent them an email. I sent a couple of, there's a OWE, there was another group, but he was the only one who responded to me. And I started it up all again.
But I hear you were somewhat of a big hit there. Again, not to imply you weren't here, but just they kind of grabbed a hold of Steve the teacher there.
Yes, but I had to prove myself first. The first 2 shows, I had to pay my own expenses. I got a payday, but I had to pay for my plane. No, I'm sorry. He gave me the hotel too. So I just had to pay for my transportation. And I did a 1-minute spot in they called it the Kingdom Rumble because it's Middle Kingdom Wrestling, but it was a Royal Rumble thing. I came in 8 or 9, tried to teach one of the Chinese wrestlers a lesson. He grabbed me by my tie, threw me over the top rope. And then on the other side of China, Shenzhen, all the way in the south, about 3 months later, they brought me into a 4-way in which I interrupted. It was around Christmas time. And I got into the ring and tried to teach one of the Chinese wrestlers Christmas-related words. And he gave me a German. We were supposed to do a vertical suplex. And I just didn't trust myself to stay up long enough to make him look good. So I was never afraid to take any bump. So I risked the riskier bump of the German just to make him look better. And then after that, the foreign, there's a lot of foreign teachers in these cities. They were cheering me on, almost like, I don't want to say sarcastically, but camp, like, because they like the old-fashioned heel, which is what I am. And then I started coming back. I did my first storyline ever. After 20 years, they gave me an 8 or 9 month storyline. We did a show in a public mall. I'm all over the place here. I'm sorry. But
oh, that's fine.
The promoter, and I love the man, he took a chance on me, and I would work for him at any time. But he always thought that it was important for the Chinese workers to go over because it was for the better of the audience. But in this particular mall show, there was enough expats there and enough people that were invested in me that that's the one time I think he made the wrong decision.
Really?
I think the people were disappointed that I lost.
But see, sometimes that can drive a storyline too.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you get that payoff.
Well, not with him, but with the storyline. Like I said, it ran 8 or 9 months, but actually it was, we did it like 3 weekends during COVID. So we taped 12 episodes over 3 days.
Oh, wow. I guess that makes sense if you guys are all together in one area.
Right. And we were limited to the number of spectators. We were allowed to have friends, family, and some people. But so it wasn't a total empty studio thing like Thunderdome.
Okay. Yes. That was quite the experiment. So now you've had quite the opponent list as well.
I've been very fortunate. Certain promoters thought that it was a good idea to put me in with some names. It's funny how certain promoters I was like one of the main heels, and in other promoters I was a jobber, and just a couple miles down the road. But just the way they saw me different. But my very first big name that I wrestled was Doink the Clown. It wasn't Matt Bourne. It wasn't Ray Apollo, the original two. It wasn't Steve Kern, but it was somebody who did play him at times for WWF at the time. And I'll always be grateful for that because he sat down with me. I was nervous, still fairly green, and he sat down with me for hours running through the match with me. And it was a good match.
Doink the Clown.
And then I had a couple of matches with Nikolai Volkov, which were very interesting because, I mean, obviously I didn't expect him to know who I am. But we were doing an outdoor show. It was a July 4th show, the first time I wrestled him, in Madam Morris, Pennsylvania, sponsored by the local fire department. And I was at the merch table selling my stuff, just like Mick Foley says, you got to make your bucks. Nikolai walks in, He says, "Who am I wrestling?" And I go, "You're working Steve the teacher tonight." And he says, "Who the hell is that?" I said, "Well, I guess you'll find out in the ring." And then he sat down next to me and was selling his merchandise. And it was just funny because he became very passionate about his diet and fitness later in life. And one kid, couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old, walked up to the merchandise table and asked for Nikolai's autograph. And he looks at the kid, "Tell me something. Why are you so fat?" And I went, "Oh my God."
That's how you lose a sale, Nikolai. That's
Yeah. Oh, and the second time I wrestled him, he wanted me to go over, but the promoter said no. So Nikolai, this is all his idea, a controversial finish. He hits me with the finisher. I put my foot on the rope. Unfortunately, neither of us told the referee.
Oh, really?
So the referee broke the hold. If he didn't break it, I could have had a little claim. Oh, I didn't lose. And so Nikolai picks me up, backs me in the corner. I said, "What do we do? What do we do?" And he looks at me, "Same thing." And we just did the same finish. This time I didn't put my foot on the ropes. Jimmy Snuka, childhood idol. Very fortunate to have wrestled him. It was actually one of his later matches. I mean, he was, I believe, 62 at the time.
Oh, wow.
We didn't really call anything in advance except for the finish, shoulder breaker or back breaker rather, into the Superfly splash. But he's just a quiet man. It wasn't because he was mean or arrogant or thought he was better than everyone else. He just sat in the back with his wife. Then we did the match, and basically I just did what I thought was a typical snooker match. I backed him into the corner. I punched him in the head. I was hoping that he knew where I was going with this, and he did. He no-sold it, so I hit him again, and then no-sold it, and then he flips me around and does the chops, which is exactly what I wanted.
Nice. See, that's cool though, when you guys can be in a ring like that and not need to call it, and you know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I also had an interesting match with Tito Santana. We were playing it up to the fans. There was one of the regulars in the crowd for this federation showed up in a wrestling singlet. And it was just very amusing to see this middle-aged, overweight man in a wrestling singlet. So I grabbed the referee, and I took pride with this referee, Zach Carlucci, in making him break character any way I could. So I pointed to the guy and said, "I can see his nutsack." And the referee just looked at me. So we were like doing the thing where we're standing on the turnbuckle, booing me, cheering him. We were given 8 minutes. The referee says, "Steve, 7 minutes gone." We hadn't even started the match.
What? Oh, wow.
So I mean, we went over a little bit, but it was relatively a less than 5-minute match.
Wow.
Let's see, who else? Billy Gunn. I wrestled him for Real Pro Wrestling Federation. Very long match. Too many promos. That federation, I love Ralph Ray dearly. He's still my best friend to this day. But they brought in all the local heroes that they can find. So there was the ring announcer won an auction to have the right to be the ring announcer. They always brought in someone from the military, someone from the local news channel. So by the time your match got started, it was at least 15, 20 minutes gone already.
Oh, wow.
And then I had to do my promo. I had a faction then, the faculty. And I did my promo. And then the promoter's wife at the time always wrote a poem for me to read. And I hated doing it. So that took more time. And then Billy Gunn making his entrance was definitely, him walking around the ring, high-fiving everyone, shaking his butt and all. But then he grabbed the microphone and said, "I don't do this stuff. I'm censoring myself because I don't know what your policy is."
Go for it.
Okay, he said, "Yeah, I don't do this promo shit." So He said, "I'm just going to cut this short and give you 2 words." And obviously, you know what those 2 words are.
Yep.
But we did a good match. I'm nervous as hell. Towards the end, 3/4 of the way through, we had a turnaround spot where I whipped him into the corner, and he was going to reverse it. I was under the impression that, well, actually, let me say, he was under the impression that he was going to boot me to the face. I was under the impression that he was going to roll out away from my clothesline. He was right. So there's a lot of footage on me on YouTube of him booting me right in the nose. I take a bump, a legitimate bump. He does a double down thing. And, "You okay, Steve? You okay? Can you go on? You all right? You're right. You're right." But we still had to do a famouser and a jackknife yet. So we still had a. And I'm not going to lie to you, but I used to lie and say that the reason my nose is so big is because of that match. But it was always big. It just made it worse.
Oh, that's the best story to have for that, though.
Yeah. And I stuck by it for years. I'm not going to lie.
So was it just a hit to the face, or did you end up having damage?
Oh, my nose was broken, but it had been broken before
Oh,
through martial arts. And so, yeah, I was bleeding a little bit from the nose. But he proved to be a very likable guy. In fact, I'm just reading some criticism of him, how he treats some of the younger talents. And he was great with me. The promoter and him became friends. So when the promoter had a house party, the promoter had a ring in his backyard. So we were doing a match, me and the promoter, and Billy Gunn ran in and knocked us both out and dragged me over him. But then he was doing a seminar afterwards. And he was getting frustrated. There was only like 3 or 4 participants with their abilities. And he said, I got to demonstrate with somebody who knows what they're doing. Steve, get in here. And I took that as a big honor.
yeah. That's amazing. So now, you had mentioned one other thing that kind of, piqued my interest when we first get ready to do this, about a dog collar roller derby match. Please.
You would be surprised about how often I get asked about this match. It was for the World Professional Wrestling promotion out of Reading, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
I blindly reached out to them. They blindly booked me in a match, and I worked with them once a month for about 5 years. I was Steve the teacher. I was my Japanese gimmick, Gyoza, and I was the commissioner. Little off the topic here, but the promoter, who put himself over as the big face, which a lot of them like to do, demanded to see the commissioner over the mic. "Steve the teacher, get out here. I need the commissioner. I need him now." Well, the commissioner wears a full suit. I'm wrestling next in my masked Japanese gimmick, and I'm in the gorilla waiting to go. And I'm like, "I can't right now." I'm screaming. And then I rip off the mask and stick my head out. "I'll talk to you when I'm ready, not when you're." And then afterwards, he realized. But anyway, getting back to
It's like a Mrs. Doubtfire moment.
yeah, I never thought of it that way, but absolutely. Once a year, he would do this double shot. The afternoon show would be at a local car dealership. Then there was a signing event in between, and then the second show was always at a local roller skating rink. We did it one year, and the promoter, I don't remember what I did to trigger this, but I must have did a run-in or cost him a match or something. "Steve the teacher, I challenge you to a roller skating roller derby match next year at this very location." And in the middle of the ring, I laughed. I go, "This is an independent audience. They don't remember the story from next month. You're going to challenge me a year from now?" But the match went on, except somewhere in that time, he chickened out. And he put another opponent in there. Someone I respect very much, Playboy Vince Bono. In fact, he just won the RCW championship last weekend. So props to you, Rob. So he took the place. I decided to get as much comedy effect out of it as I could. So I came out, motorcycle helmet, elbow pads, 2 pillows duct taped to my ass. And then he came out. The object of the match was to roller skate around the perimeter of the rink from the start line to the finish line, and whoever was the first to cross was the winner. But you can do anything that you wanted in between. So, having never thrown a drop kick in my life, something prompted me to throw a drop kick with roller skates on.
Oh,
But there was a lot of back bumps, chain yanks, including the between the leg yank. And there's also two, they called them special guest referees, but I guess they were more of enforcers. One of them was Doink, a different Doink. In fact, I've wrestled 6 different Doinks over the stages of my career. And the other one was an evil clown. His name was Crappy the Clown. And
I like that. I've never heard that name, but I like that.
Yeah, very sloppy, reeked of meth. Oh my God, he smelled like pure chemicals. And he had this gimmick. It was like one of those Nerf guns, but instead of shooting balls, it shot toilet paper.
Oh, neat.
So just as I was about to cross the line, he shoots it at me. I get all entangled. I bump to toilet paper. And the other guy sneaks by and wins the match. That's actually, now that I think of it, the other Doink had me bumping the silly string. So I've bumped to some unusual things in my life.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Well, then, of all your named people that you've wrestled against, what was the one moment that you kind of fanned out the most?
Probably the Jimmy Snuka incident, but I had like other incidents with bigger names. One of the promotions brought in Jay Lethal during the Black Machismo bit. And I had done a show, one of my first or second shows ever, and he was on the card. I don't remember talking to him at all, but as soon as he walked in, "Hey, Steve the Teacher, I haven't seen you in years. I've been seeing on the internet you're doing pretty well for you." And I was really honored that he had recollected. I didn't remember him. That was classy.
That is really cool.
Opposed to, I'm sorry, I was going to say Luke Gallows. By that time, he was going through the name. I'm sorry, I'm sitting on the floor, so I'm shifting a lot.
It's all good.
He was going by the name of Dorian DeVille, and I had seen him on several New Jersey shows. Very nice guy. We were doing a show in Paulsboro, New Jersey, again at a firehouse, and everyone was in the locker room. And I guess Luke, Dorian had too much protein that day, and he let it be known to everyone, who immediately, oh my God. And we all fled out of the locker room into the arena area just to escape his noxious gas.
Oh man. See, that's the other thing that's gonna be cool because you said you've done this 22 years now, which puts you right at the end of 90s, right? When WWE was having its Attitude Era. So, what was your road trips like?
I had some interesting road trips. I was very naive when I first started for World Star Wrestling Federation, which was one of the promotions who put a lot of faith in me, a lot of trust in me. I was very naive because I had just moved to New Jersey within the last couple of years, and they said that they were in Pennsylvania. And to me, Pennsylvania was Philadelphia and the surrounding areas. I didn't realize, yeah. So, I left like
It's a long state.
an hour and a half before the show, and it was like almost a 3-hour drive, and I got there mid-show, and I was in the main event against, they tabbed me with the gentleman who referred me, Joey Image. Thank you, Joey. And we faced their new proteges. One of them was the promoter's partner's son and his best friend. And they were doing a pretty hokey act. They came out to like the Rocky IV theme. And they tried to cut a promo after we cut the promo. The name of the town was Lanford, Pennsylvania. And at that time, the Roseanne show was still popular. And she lived in Lansford as opposed to Lanford. So I cut a promo saying, what are we doing in Roseanne's city? Where is she? And then I pointed to a fat lady and went, oh, there she is. But then it was their time to cut the promo. And one of them said, Steve the Teacher, what are you supposed to be, a teacher or something? And I'm like, that's the most clever thing you could say to me. But
got to work on the promo skills.
yeah. and that it just felt like a rock and roll express kind of gimmick. 10 years too late with music from the wrong decade.
But see, that's half the fun of independent wrestling, though, is doing those road trip type events, because you go town to town to the small little shows,
Yeah,
and it gets interesting.
and it does. And if we go back to what I said about me knowing how to promote myself, Facebook was just starting. The internet was. I promoted myself much better than I actually was. And I did one show for John Rambo, House of Pain Wrestling Federation, whatever it was. And when I was getting out of the car, people were screaming, "Oh, that's Steve the Teacher." I'm like, not only have I never wrestled for this promotion, I've never wrestled in this state. And they just believed what they saw on Facebook. And I did that a lot. I had a lot of people believing I was better than I actually was, or more famous than I actually was.
The internet is an amazing thing. So you also have a book out. Where is it here? Let's bring that up.
That's me.
Class in Session.
That's
For
how I started all of my promos. And the few times that I went over, I ended with class dismissed.
That's perfect.
I actually started writing this book as more or less of a journal where I wrote entries after every match. But then my computer crashed, and this was still in the floppy disk days. There was no cloud. There was no way of backing anything up. I don't know what happened to the disk. So I had over 350 pages written at the time, lost it all, gave it up. 20 years later or so, just recently, in China, my mentor, British wrestler, Big Sam, wearing the shirt right now,
Oh, nice.
told me I should write a book. I said, well, I actually did, but I lost it. But then I started thinking about it, and I think my perspective is a lot better now. So I was afraid I was going to forget things, and maybe I did. But I've had 6 diagnosed concussions, by the way. But I think looking back on things provided a better perspective in the long run. I'm going to admit there's a fault with the book. I'll be the first one to admit it. A friend of mine planted a seed in my head that a book has to be 75,000 words. So towards the end, I started detailing my Chinese matches way too much, full detail.
Okay.
And I'm sure that took away. I didn't do that for 80% of the book, but I panicked. So I apologize in advance.
You were going for that number total.
He planted that seed. It's not an autobiography if it doesn't have 75,000 words.
That's interesting. I've never heard that. But I can see that kind of thing coming up because you want to make sure it's a certain size. You know what I mean?
And when I printed it on Amazon, I was shocked when it said 264 pages because on my hard drive, it was like 130, but it's smaller pages and
Different formatting.
pictures. Yeah. So I was really surprised.
Yep. I was helping a friend edit their book, and they had like 100 pages in their computer. It's like, okay, but let's put in the formatting for a book, and it jumped up to 200. And he went, "Oh my gosh, my book's done." It's like, no, it's not. But still, yes. That's excellent. How's the book coming? Like, it's been out for a while, for just a bit, right?
4 or 5 months. It was popular the first month or two, very popular. In fact, at one point, I reached number 2 on the Amazon wrestlers/new release category. I'm really breaking it down. But I couldn't topple Tyrus. And then he put out the same book in like 6 different formats. So that really pushed me down a lot.
Yep.
One book that pushed me down was a wrestling notebook. It was just a blank notebook with a wrestling theme on the cover. I'm like, I lost to somebody who had no words.
Where's their 75,000 words, right?
Yeah. And then it started to diminish, and I had the paperback and the digital at that time. I did the hardcover, and I got a little bit of a resurgence. I'm still getting checks from Amazon for like $14 a month.
That's
It wasn't about the money.
well, no, and that's just it too. It's a trickle effect when it comes to books
Yeah.
because you might sell a bunch the first week or so, and then from that point on, it's just as people see it, they grab it.
Yeah, because I ran out of friends within the first month, friends and family to purchase.
Everybody's got one. Yep.
The difference is I don't hide it. I'm upfront with everything to a fault. I've gotten myself in trouble with my honesty.
Well, then let's test that honesty. You
Okay.
mentioned that you started when you were 34. That's kind of like a DDP kind of thing where late in the career. How long do you plan on going? Like,
Um, I wanted to go until I was about 60. I've since left China. I'm in the Philippines. Um, I had offers from groups in Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, Nepal. So I wanted just to do like one or two matches with each of these, just to put it on my belt notch that I or bedpost, whatever. Check it off my list. But it seems that a lot of these promotions don't follow through with their offers, even when I offered to work for free and pay my own fare. Um, so yeah, everyone was interested until it was time to put up or shut up.
oh man, that's crazy.
And they really need a veteran presence. To quote my friend Big Sam, who's wrestled in all of these countries, I haven't. He said, "What Asia is lacking is a man in the locker room." And it could be man or woman. But what he's saying is that they don't understand any of the rules, the etiquettes, the protocols. All they're trying to do is get themselves over. And I did have some of those issues in the Chinese locker room. I'm not going to lie. There was one guy who I wrestled twice, actually. The first time he knew he was going to wrestle me. I didn't know I was going to wrestle him. He had the whole match called out weeks in advance.
Oh, really?
So that violated that the vet calls the match and that the heel calls the match. And I tried to explain it to him, and he, oh yes, I understand. And then a couple months later, we wrestled again, and the same exact thing happened. And a lot of them, they come late, they leave early, they don't help with the ring if they don't have to. There's a lot of they don't know the customs or traditions. They don't shake hands, and that's what I was offering a company in the Philippines that yes, I would wrestle for you, but at the same time, I want to teach my experience to your workers. And the first person I dealt with was very arrogant. They booked me for June. I never heard from them. I saw the show posted, and I said, "Oh, I thought I was going to do that show." Just we do more than one show a month. They never did a show again, and then they had me booked for September 11th. And I even volunteered. They asked me, and I said, "Yeah, I'll come in and do a couple seminars, whatever you want." And then they said, "Well, the first show is kind of booked, but if you get to know people, then we'll use you the next time." So I was going to pay all this money to come to them, to teach them, to provide my knowledge, and they weren't even going to put me on the show. I said, "Let me do anything. Let me do a squash match, either way. Let me just do an in-ring interview where I introduce myself." Oh, yeah, that's fine. Like I said, the show is scheduled for September 11th. Here it is September 6th. I haven't heard from them. So at this point, the answer is no. I'm not.
Yeah, that's cutting it really close if they're still going to do that.
They're a very weird group. They see themselves as progressive. And when I first mentioned that I could teach etiquette, the second person.
Oh. Oh, hang on a second. We lost your audio, Steve. 1 second. We seem to have lost. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Try that one more time.
Now?
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry
Yeah,
about
so
that.
I have this issue with millennials who think they know everything and just don't want to learn. But they post their political views on their Facebook promotion page. You don't do that, And then when they're candidate lost, they said, well, we can't blame all of you people for voting for the wrong person. You're just stupid.
Oh,
And then the
that'll
main guy who wrestled Tajiri one day brought him in, paid his own money to wrestle Tajiri. I respect Rajiri to the utmost, but Tajiri. But there are these ECW guys who will come in anywhere for a payday. And he was in Japan, which is not too far away from the Philippines. So saying you worked him doesn't impress me. I mean, like that's like saying you worked Nunzio or a lot of Just Incredible. I mean, yeah, they'll work for anyone. It doesn't make. But the thing that got me, he posted on Facebook that there's only 3 people in his group that know how to throw a kick properly. You just sold your whole locker room out. You threw them
exactly.
all under the bus. Well, the 3 of us know what we're doing, but everyone else sucks. Now come see our show and pay us money. And they tell me that they know etiquette and protocol and tradition and whatnot.
They definitely don't know business either.
Yeah,
Oh man,
yeah.
no. Especially when you get into politics, you can do the divisive stuff in the ring. That's usually where you can get the heat. Like you look at Iron Sheik and all them from way back in the day. They used it beautifully in the ring, but you start posting it, like you said, on Facebook outside, and that's not
Post
show
it on your
anymore.
own page because it was a shoot. I mean, that's their legitimate beliefs. It wasn't part of the character. They just believe they're younger and smarter than 3/4 of the Philippines.
Oh man. Well, so then do you still have plans to possibly do a match or two in the future?
Uh, this incident of not getting back to me on time was a disappointment. I'm not going to lie to you. And I find that this lack of communication is very prevalent among the Asian culture. If an offer comes around, I'm very much interested. I'd love to wrestle in another country, have that, put that on my resume. But I'm not going to be as generous where I'm going to eat the whole cost of it
Yeah.
just to get the experience, which is what I was more than happy to do. But, fool me once, shame on you.
Well, yeah, and sadly, that's one of those once in a lifetime offers that they missed out. They messed up.
Yeah. It's a disappointment, but there a lot of them are just kids playing a video game. They think they're in a game.
Yep.
I mean,
Oh,
even like when they're chopping me or super kicking me and they miss me by 1.5 feet, I won't sell it. I stand in the ring. I go, hit me.
well, that takes away your art because you're the one selling the move, and if you don't get hit by it, you look like a fool if you sell it.
Right. And it's always been my priority to make both people look strong. I've been offered to go over in squash matches many, many times, and I absolutely have refused every single time. I want to make people look good. I don't want to get any glory at someone else's expense. And that's what I specialized in, and a couple of promoters picked up on that. Tommy Cairo used to work for ECW. He started his own federation, and I wrestled someone named Big Slam, fairly well known on the Northeast circuit. Just passed away within the last 2 years. Rest in peace. Good man. He had a gimmick so similar to Vader. He used to be called some version of Vader, and he actually got a cease and desist letter from WWE. So he went from Big Slam Vader to Big Slam to just Slam. And I've wrestled him 14, 15 times, always lost. And for Tommy's promotion, I wrestled him, and then I went back the next month, and in front of the whole locker room said, Steve made that fat piece of shit look strong. You're going to wrestle him again tonight, but you're going over.
Really?
Yeah, I was surprised. And he's been in the business a lot longer than I have. Better reputation, better experience. Good worker, just a big 420-pound guy who is limited in some of his movements. But who am I to talk? I was the shits too. I'll be the first to tell you that.
Well, that's everybody has their limits. You just work within them.
And you bring me back to that same kid in China. I know my limitations. He wanted to do one of those Booker T spots where he goes into the corner and leaps in the air, and I run into him. And I said, we haven't practiced that. I don't have the timing down. I don't feel confident. Oh, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And it wasn't. It was the shits. I know my limitations.
That's awesome. Well, Steve, thank you so much for taking some time today because I know it's morning over there, isn't it?
It is morning. Yes, sir. It
You
is 12 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time.
You're getting ready to start your day, and we're just getting ready for bed. Well,
I hope my
everybody.
boring speech helped put you to sleep a little bit easier.
Oh no! Now, see, I'm going to go find your book because now I am so intrigued. Yes, look for it. Class in session here. I'm going to throw that picture back up too. That's what you look for. There's the cover, From Teacher to Wrestler. I think that's a beautiful gimmick, and I love what you did with it. Steve, thanks so much for chatting with us today.
My pleasure. I'd be happy to come back at any time.
You got it. And for everybody else out there, stay tuned because, here, there's always somebody coming up, and we can't wait to talk to you again. Have a great day, everybody.